Hello everyone. Hope you're doing great. This is Motorsport Progression, and I'm back again with another video. So I just want to talk about the 2025 Moto GP Grand Prix of the Americas, the actual main race on the Sunday. So as I said in the previous video, it was Mark Marquez who won the sprint race, and he won. That's altogether that's three sprint races in a row, and two main races that he's won, and so that's five wins. And he won the sprint race on the Saturday for the Americas GP. So going into the Sunday, he was the favorite. He looked the favorite. He was gonna start on pole and everything. But there was a wrench thrown into the works here. So there was a dump track here, and the conditions. There was rain in the morning here, so the track was a bit damp. And what happened is what happened is the bikes, all the most of the drivers, they set up their bike here to be on a damp track. You know what I mean? And they had the tires that they had was a little bit towards the wet side. So with 2 minutes to go, yeah, with 2 minutes to go to the warm up lap, Mark Marquez decided to go into the pits, to run into the pits and change bikes. So when other riders saw this, they decided to go and change their bikes as well, because they realized that it wasn't raining as much. You know what I'm saying? The track was drying up, so the best tires to be on was the dry tires. So really and truly, Mark would have got a ride through penalty for that if he done it on his own, but because there was more than 10 riders who run into the pits to change bikes, the start was delayed. So with 2 minutes to go, Mark pulled this move and decided to switch onto a bike from a dump setting bike. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So a lot of riders following him. That made it quite difficult for the race organizers, to start a warm up lap. And so what happened is there was maybe like a 10 or 15-minute delay. So all the riders, that went into the pace to change their bikes, they were lucky. Normally they would have taken the second bike, but because there was a bit of time, the first bike was readjusted, and then the tires were put on, if you know what I mean. So the first bike obviously has been running on the track all weekend and is rubbered in. So it's the bike that it was good for them to use, instead of using the second bike. Or they could have had a flag to flag race where you come in and change bikes, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't that. Okay. So the start procedure was scheduled to go on at 14:10. So probably the race was scheduled to start at 1400, Central Time. And as I said earlier, instead of taking the second bike, the teams readjusted the first bike, you know what I'm saying? And then their pit lane was open, so they said the steward said, "Look, it's gonna be a quick start procedure." So from all that chaos here on the grid, you had a from all that chaos on the grid, you had a what's his name, a quick start procedure. So you leave the pit lane, you have a sighting lap, then you get into your grid slots, then you have a warm up lap, then you have a race start. So it was all like in succession, So it was very difficult, and so okay, so you have a sighting lap, you slot into your grid, you have a warm up lap, and you had a race start. So the number of laps was reduced from 20 to 19. Okay, so the previous wins here at the Circuit of the Americas was Alex Rins in 2019, Mark Marquez in 2021. Alex Rins was on a Suzuki, Mark was on a Honda, and Enea Bastianini in 2022 on a Ducati, Alex Rins again on 2023 on a Honda, and then Maverick Vinales last year, he won it on the Aprilia. So at the race start, yeah, Marquez kept the lead, and there was a great start from Pecco Bagnaia. He started from sixth and he got into third position. There was also a good start for Fabio Di Gianantonio, uh, but he still lost. He had a good start into turn one, but he still lost in the next sequence of corners, he lost like 2 places. Yeah. And then Francesco Bagnaia briefly passed Alex Marquez for second, but Alex Marquez then regained the place back quickly on lap one. So at the end of lap one, Mark Marquez was like 1 second ahead of Alex Marquez, and then you had Jack Miller battling with Franco Morbidelli for fifth position. Jack Miller on the Pramac Yamaha. So he's doing really well. He's done really well in the first couple of races. So Jack Miller's pushing Yamaha forward, step by step, and then Fabio Quartararo also he was he was uh he was fighting with other riders, on the main straight as well. So, Fabio was there and thereabouts, in the mix, And then on lap two of 19, you had Morbidelli overtake Jack Miller for fifth position, Franco Morbidelli, and then you had Mark Marquez had the fastest lap on lap two. That's early days in the Grand Prix. So this is the main race we're talking about. So now, you had Fermin Aldeguer pass Fabio Quartararo for eighth position. So Fabio had a good start, but he started to lose places, and because the Yamaha is not as quick. They got good starts, but it's not as quick in the race trim. Maybe in the sprint race trim, it's quite good, but in the actual race trim, it struggled a little bit. And then on lap 4 of 10, you had Mark Marquez 1.453 seconds ahead of Alex Marquez, and then Pecco Bagnaia was in third. So on lap four, the same lap, Bagnaia overtook Alex Marquez at the end of the back straight on lap 4 of 10 in turn 12. He done a beautiful braking move here on the inside of Alex Marquez here. Beautiful out braking move and then overtook for second position. So on lap 5 of 10, Bagnaia had the fastest lap. He traded fastest lap with Mark Marquez on lap 6 of 10. Mark Marquez had the fastest lap, so Mark was 1.770 seconds ahead of Bagnaia in second position, and then Alex Marquez was in third. Fabio Di Giannantonio was in fourth, and Franco Morbidelli was in fifth. So Fabio and Franco, they both ride in the VR46 bikes, Valentino Rossi's team. So on lap 7 of 10, there was another fastest lap by Mark Marquez. He was pushing because he knows, look, Francesco Bagnaia is behind him. So he wanted to make a gap. And the gap that he wanted to make was to make about maybe a 4 or 5 second gap so he can have a little bit of breathing space. But Bagnaia kept him honest. Bagnaia, you remember I was saying in the sprint race, Bagnaia said he found a little bit of pace and a little bit of confidence on the bike, so he was quite confident in this race. So on lap 8 of 10, there was a crash by Pedro Acosta, and he remounted the bike. He got back on the bike, but he lost a few places. And then Mark was 2.240 seconds ahead of Francesco Bagnaia, and then Bagnaia was 0.889 seconds ahead of Alex Marquez. Okay, now, so on lap 9 of 10, Mark Marquez crashed in between the turn 4-5 complex, uh, turn 4-5 complex, and he touched the inside of the curb in turn 4, and the curb had a little bit of water. Remember the track was damp, from the rain in the morning. It holds a little bit of water, and I don't know why the commentators were saying they don't know why he kept using the inside of that turn, and they were wondering why is he the only rider that was using the inside of that turn. Maybe he was getting a bit more pace from the inside of the curb, But the problem was my analysis is that I feel like Mark was, it was too much for him. He was a little bit exhausted because think about it, yeah. He ran in the pits, yeah. That's using energy. They changed the bikes. He had to come back, do a sighting lap, then do a warm up lap, then start the race. And then he's leading the race trying to build a gap. So, it took a lot of energy out of him. And that's slight loss of concentration. I'm not saying Marcus has a lot of energy, but I'm just saying that, it could have been a little bit of fatigue there that made him lose that bike there, And Marcus doesn't really, I mean, he makes mistakes, but he doesn't really lose the bike in that fashion, what I'm saying? So, and the Ducati is very, very stable. You know, Ducati that Ducati Lenovo is a very very good bike, so it's very stable. So I didn't see no reason for Mark to make the mistake. I just felt like he put too much pressure on himself, by running into the pace to change bags, then have a sighting lap, then have a warm up lap, then starting the race on pole position and trying to be the front runner. It was all too much for him, So he ended up crashing on in turn four, yeah, on lap 9 of 19. So with 10 laps to go, Francesco Bagnaia took the lead from Alex Marquez, and then Fabio Di Giannantonio was in third position. So Mark crashed and then he ended up dropping to like 18th. He had no screen on his back. His screen was like half broken or three quarters broken. And he had no foot peg on the right side of the back. So he lost the foot peg, what, when he was sliding off. And he should have came in and changed bikes. That's what the commentators were saying. But he didn't come in and change bikes. And he was down in 18th. And I thought that was very dangerous riding by Mark because he could have got injured, yeah, because he was kind of resting his foot on the exhaust and also resting his foot on an accelerated red tire, kind of, and his foot could have got stuck in there. It would have caused him too many problems. So, and plus, yeah, with no screen on the bike as well, the airflow would have been too much for him. So Mark should just came in, changed bikes, but he didn't. He didn't. He kept riding. And they were saying maybe to see if there would be rain, so it would be a flag to flag race. So now, with Bagnaia taking the lead, looking on lap 10 of 19 as well, Marco Bezzecchi on the Aprilia passed Johan Mir for 10th position. And then you had Pedro Acosta with three laps after he's crashed, because Pedro Acosta crashed on lap, I think, 8. Yeah, he crashed on lap 8. So on lap 11, Pedro Acosta, he retired. He retired. On lap 11 of 19, you had Joan Mir. He crashed as well in sector 3, turn 15. So it was very unlucky there for Joan Mir because he crashed in a sprint race as well, as I can remember. And then on lap 12 of 19, you had Pecco Bagnaia. He was 2.106 seconds ahead of Alex Marquez, who was in second. And then Fabio Di Giannantonio, who was in third. Then you had Franco Morbidelli in fourth position, Brad Binder in fifth position, Jack Miller in sixth position, Johan Zarco in seventh position, Fermin Aldeguer in eighth position, Luca Marini in ninth position, and then Marco Bezzecchi in 10th position. So that was the top 10 on lap 12 of 19. So on lap 13 of 19, Marcus retired, 4 laps after he made a mistake and, he crashed and he was riding a bike that was really, without no aerodynamics, and then he didn't have a foot peg in it. So it was really dangerous for him. So, he should have stopped worrying about the race and the championship or whatever, and just came in the pits. Because if he just done one lap and he realized that it was a bit too dangerous. But Mark is a daredevil, isn't it? So he takes risk in it. That's why he's got 6 MotoGP World Championships. He takes risks, and it's got him that far so far. So yeah, I mean, what can people say? What can I say? And then on lap 14 of lap 14 of 19, Pecco was 2.3 seconds ahead of Alex Marquez. And then you had a battle between Fermin Adaguer and Johan Zarco with a battle for 6. And then also Brad Binder retired as well. So that's 3 retirements already. You had Johan Mir, Pedro Acosta, Brad Binder, Mark Marquez. That's 4 retirements already. And then on lap 15 of 19, you had Fermin Aldeguer. He passed Johan Zarco for 6th position. So he passed Johan Zarco for 6th position. So that was looking good for him there. And then you had Marco Bezzecchi in 8th position. You know, 5 laps to go. So he moved up 2 places. I remember he was in 10th, like on lap 10, and then on lap 15 he was in 8th. So Marco Bezzecchi was picking up some pace during the race there, and he Bezzecchi was then challenging Johan Zarco for seventh position on lap 16 of 19, and then Bezecchi managed to pass, Johan Zarco for seventh position. So in about uh in about 6 laps, he's went from 10th position to 7th position. He's gained 3 places, which was really good for Marco Bezzecchi on that Aprilia because he struggled in the sprint race a little bit. So on lap 17 of 19, you had Johan Zarco crashed after he was passed by, Marco Bezzecchi. And that was unlucky for him. There was only 2 laps to go. And then also Fermin Aldeguer crashed on lap 18 of 19 as well in sector 3, which brought out, there were some yellow flags as well. So, these riders was very unlucky, Johan Zarco and Fermin Aldeguer, because they drove brilliantly, they raced brilliantly, but it was unlucky for them, like with like 2 laps to go they end up crashing. You know, it's not loss of conscience. Sometimes they go overtaken, trying to too eager to come back, and take the position back. So that's what happened. And then on lap 19 of 19, Pecco Bagnaia was 2.163 seconds ahead of Alex Marquez, and then you had Fabio Di Gianantonio in third position, and he was very close to Alex Marquez. And then in the end, Francesco Bagnaia took his first win of the season in the Grand Prix of the Americas with Alex Marquez second, and then Fabio Di Gianantonio third. So, so yeah, Bagnaia won the race, and it was really good for him to take his first Grand Prix win of the season. I mean, he had to watch his new teammate, Mark Marquez, come in the team and win 5 races in a row, including 3 sprint races and 2 main races. So he took the Grand Prix of the Americas win. And, people were doubting him after the first race of the season. But I know how good Francesco Bagnaia is in it. So I actually wrote an article on the website, motorsportprogression.com. I said, Francesco Bagnaia must not be underestimated for the 2025 MotoGP World Championship. I mean, Mark is the better rider, but Francesco Bagnaia can make adjustments and put some real pressure on Mark. And he can take a lot of Grand Prix wins as well. He's a proven winner, and he's proven that he can come back. From a lot of points down as well to win world championships. So the main thing is Alex Marquez took the championship lead from his brother, Mark Marquez, and he's 1 point ahead of Mark Marquez. And then Bagnaia is in third, 11 points behind Mark Marquez. So, it's all to play for. So the next Grand Prix is going to be the Qatar Grand Prix. And that's a good track for Pecco Bagnaia as well. But I won't be surprised if Mark does really, really well there because that Ducati is flies, So, yeah, peeps, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate that. So, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the new content coming out. And don't forget to like the video as well. And if you got any comments, drop it below and we can engage there. And if you got any questions to ask me, feel free to ask. And also, don't forget to share the content on your various social media platforms so other people can get the knowledge. So peeps, I'm gonna wrap it up here. That's the debrief, the analysis for the Grand Prix of the Americas in Texas at the Circuit of the Americas, and it was won by Francesco Bagnaia. So on to the next one, which is round 4 of 22. So peeps, I'm gonna leave you here and then see you soon. Thank you.